This article originally appeared on Noisy US. Swiss heavy metal behemoths Celtic Frost and their primordial predecessor, Hellhammer, have long been an immutable part of early extreme metal's most unholy triumvirate, alongside Bathory and Venom. From the earliest messiest days of Hellhammer up to, and including the band's weighty final statement, Monotheist, Celtic Frost consistently and fearlessly seared their black mark upon rock and roll history. Whether they were busily introducing the avant-garde to metal, or simply hammering out one of those goddamn riffs, it may sound hyperbolic to say, but there's no denying it, Celtic Frost changed the world. Formed as Hellhammer in 1982 and solidified as Celtic Frost in 1984, the band was on the vanguard of heavy metal's newly evolving extreme side. The primal aggression reverberating from their early recordings may seem par for the course to anyone familiar with metal's current outliers, but back in the early 80s, what they were doing felt downright revolutionary. The band's uniquely harsh vocals, lurching, industrial-influenced tempos, air of gothic excess, and overall destructive, satanic atmosphere set them apart from their scant contemporaries like Venom, Bathory, and Sodom, as did their immediate willingness to experiment, to twist and tease out the potential in what heavy metal could ultimately be. Sometimes this musical curiosity backfired, as in 1988's notorious Cold Lake fiasco. Sometimes, it bore the sweetest, most fiendishly addictive fruit, see basically everything else they've ever recorded. To add to the drama manifest in their music itself, the band's core members, Ain and Warrior, were often at odds. The band broke up, reformed, broke up again, and reformed again. When Warrior announced his departure from the band in 2008, citing irreconcilable differences, it effectively hammered the final nail into the project's battered coffin. He went on to launch Triptykon, while Ain and then drummer Franco Sisa pledged to form their own new project, which had yet to surface, as of press time. By now, Celtic Frost has been dead for nearly a decade, its members scattered, its legacy secure. This past weekend, though, when news hit that founding member and longtime bassist Martin Eric Ain had died at age 50, the fan reaction was swift and intense. Ain's musical and aesthetic contributions to the heavy metal canon are impossible to quantify, so deep an impact has his work in Celtic Frost left upon the genre's history. His lifelong friend, bandmate, and occasional nemesis, Tom G. Warrior, paid heartbreaking tribute to his fallen friend, writing, "I am deeply affected by Martin Eric Ain's passing. Our relationship was very complex and definitely not free of conflicts, but Martin's life and mine were very closely intertwined since we first met in 1982. My life will be painfully incomplete without his existence." As soon as I heard of Ain's passing, I immediately threw on my copy of Morbid Tales and spent some time reminding myself of just how important this band has been to my musical development, as it has been for so very many others. That's what made me want to do one of these guides, to provide some comfort to those of you who were devastated by the news, and encourage newer listeners to dig deeper into this iconic band's remarkable catalog. The Encyclopedia Metalum provides a full list of the band's myriad albums, compilations, demos, and splits, but for convenience's sake, this guide is going to focus on major releases, though I definitely think that their 1988 split with German blues thrashers Tankard is quite interesting, especially given that it came out just before Cold Lake. The juxtaposition between the split's two tracks is pretty hilarious. Even though Ain the man is gone, his music will live on in eternum, and the best way we as fans can honor his memory is to ensure it remains resplendent upon its rightful jeweled throne. Before there was Celtic Frost, there was Hellhammer. One thing that's important for New Jack listeners to bear in mind as they press play on Ready for Slaughter is that, when this proto-Frost first made landfall, people fucking hated it. Even after the band morphed into the slightly more refined Celtic Frost, Warrior and Ain both regarded the Hellhammer days as a stain upon their combined musical reputation. As Warrior said in the CD booklet for a 1990 Hellhammer reissue, HH's leftovers kept being mighty rocks in our way. The lack of musical quality in HH made it almost impossible for us to get an unbiased reaction for Frost. To make a long story short, it almost killed all our work and dreams. This seems a bit harsh now, given how beloved Hellhammer's own slimmed catalog has become amidst the metal legions, but the dismissal, incredulity, and downright hostility that met the band's first forays into recording clearly left a few bruises on their young psyches. Thankfully, they persevered, but imagine how bloodless and boring modern metal would be without Hellhammer, and Venom, and Bathory, who were greeted with similar derision, to light the way. It's a scary thought, but thankfully one we won't need to entertain for long, because we've got a pile of their demos, EPs, and compilations to dig into, and not much else. Despite being one of the most influential proto-black metal bands going, they never managed to record a full length during their whopping 2 years of existence.